Chris Carter here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Today, it's Stars and Skulls Day, so we're going to go over our grades from the Cowboys loss, but we have to also take a closer look at what is really wrong with the offense. Is Arthur Smith holding Justin Fields back by not letting him be aggressive enough? We'll discuss that with Alan Saunders of SteelersNow.com. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things in the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes as well as our bonus content. We thank you for making us your first listener today because we're your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms and conditions apply. Alan is back. Excuse me, I got to give him the proper. We are joined by Alan Saunders. I apologize, Alan. I'm supposed to give you your intro music, and I completely flubbed it this time. But I am still working on 2 hours of sleep. I have not taken a nap since going to bed at 5:30 and waking up like at 7:30 to get back to work. And I am running on fumes.
I got a nap, so I'll bring the energy here. I got you.
There you go.
I
need
take
your
a nap
energy.
today. I did take a nap.
Your energy. One of the things that I looked at this game and I was wondering, because when we're at the game, we're taking it in live. We're just going over things. And I felt like the Steelers offense opened up the way that I talked about last week that I think they should. It was like, hey, the run game isn't working, slamming into brick walls because the offensive line ain't there yet. Make it easier on them and open up the pass game. Give Justin Fields some opportunities to throw down the field. And the thing is, Alan, I went back and I looked at it, and they definitely did. Half of the first down plays were passes in the first half. It wasn't just handing off to Najee Harris to brick walls, and there were guys open. Like, here's the other thing that I think should be extra frustrating for Steelers fans is that you had plays where guys were open, different guys were open. You had plays where I thought Calvin Austin broke open a lot in this game. Connor Hayward, and the thing that I think is really what makes it even harder for people to look at this game and assess some of it is you could point to so many different things. There were plays where guys were open and Isaac Seumalo gave up a pressure, or Broderick Jones gave up a pressure, or Justin Fields didn't see the field and a guy was open that he just completely missed, or he missed a throw to Darnell Washington, or George Pickens dropped the ball, or Van Jefferson's dropped the ball, or Connor Hayward dropped the ball, or George Pickens didn't run a route hard enough. But it just was a complete mess of maybe this was why they were being so conservative, because there's all these things that they're still cleaning up because these guys haven't been consistent enough in practice, and they saw that going into their past few games.
Yeah, and I think, I think I saw a lot of people complaining about the coaching, about Arthur Smith, about Mike Tomlin. I think this was the first game where I think a lot of the blame needs to go to Omar Khan. I think this was the first time the lack of talent at wide receiver really stood out. Not just in the times where there weren't guys open, they dropped a lot of passes. If Connor Hayward catches that first deep one, different ball game. George Pickens catches the one on third down after they score the first touchdown, totally different ball game. Van Jefferson on the comeback needs to catch that one. Connor Hayward on third down gets it punched out. Can't happen. I thought the lack of playmaking talent in the offense stood out in a big way for the first time. I didn't think Justin Fields was great. I thought his decision making was probably the worst it's been. The ball kind of generally got to where it was supposed to go. Like, he kind of overthrew Connor on that one deep one. But there were some head scratchers, decision making. But I just this is. I have a hard time. I argued on my podcast yesterday morning that the Steelers should probably look at Russell Wilson this week, but I don't think it's because Justin Fields was bad. In fact, I actually looked up this stat, and I think you'll be surprised. Justin Fields had a passer rating over 90 for 5 consecutive games for the first time in his career. It's the first time he's ever done it. This is the best Justin Fields has ever been. to me, it's not about just like the coaching staff just clearly does not trust Justin Fields all the time. Like the handoff on third down.
Third and 8. That if there's one thing to blame Arthur Smith for, that call was something I do not understand.
Yeah, but what happened last week when they were in 3rd and 10 in field goal range?
Yeah.
Justin Fields lost his mind, lost 25 yards into the football. Like, it's hard to argue with the lack of faith. I see it, but you can't continue to operate in that paradigm if there's another guy available. Like, if they're not going to trust Justin Fields, they should play Russell Wilson. I'm not saying Justin Fields isn't capable of being better than he's been. I think we've seen some flashes. I think what he's done has been better than I thought he would be. But I don't think it's manageable to continue to start a quarterback that you don't trust. It hurts too much. The last play of the game, they don't want that timeout on offense. They're not going to be able to use it anyway. Try to win the game on defense. Like even in Mike Tomlin's thought process of trying to give Justin Fields some more time to try to win the game. In Mike Tomlin's mind, if they scored, it was over. They lost. Like, that's how little faith they have in the offense. That's just not, to me, that's not a tenable situation.
And that's where I think that there's questions as far as the direction of what you want in this offense. But again, like, looking at times in this game, I thought, like, for all the blame of saying, they don't have enough playmakers at wide receiver, I thought Calvin Austin broke open several times in this game in situations where it could have been game-changing. The deep ball that went to Van Jefferson at one point could have been intercepted. He bounced right off the defender's hands. They ran a sort of Austin on a deep cross behind George Pickens running a deep corner route, and the safety just couldn't do anything about Austin because he had to worry about Pickens. If Fields just throws it on a rope to Austin, it's a first down, probably a touchdown with Austin's speed. And like, I don't know, like, if I don't know if Van Jefferson, and here's the thing about play calls, like, we can say, oh, this was open here, this is open there. You don't know what was the primary read most of the time. You'd have to be in the Steelers film room themselves as they're going over it to hear those things. But like, in a situation like that, I can't imagine Van Jefferson being double teamed is the option you'd want to go with there. And I'm just like,
that should never be the option they want to go with.
Like in fact, getting Van Jefferson double team to me is the win. Right. Schematically.
Yeah.
So like that's where I'm scratching my head when people are saying Arthur Smith's terrible. This is terrible. This offense is his fault. There's no imagination. That Connor Hayward deep ball. Do people realize he was the fullback who went on a wheel route basically? And there was a screen that opened it up. And by the way, the screen was also wide open because there were two defenders on it.
Could have thrown it to Najee Harris for an easy 10 yards. Maybe more.
Or more, because there were three blockers and two defenders. And so I'm like, I look at these moments and there's open guys at different parts of the field. And again, it's not all on Justin Fields because some of it, he does need to see the field better. He does need to maybe give Darnell Washington a better chance. But again, Van Jefferson dropping a deep ball, Connor dropping two passes, George Pickens dropping a pass. Also, George Pickens not running routes the way he should on several plays, even on plays that are designed for him. And we're going to get to that in Stars and Skulls in a little bit here. But I look at this, and it's what Mike Tomlin said, I think maybe 2 years ago when he was describing the offense when they were struggling with Mitch Trubisky, and he described it as popcorn. It was one issue here and one issue there. And it's not one thing that you could say, hey, erase this and our offense is good to go, baby. And I think that's the problem. And maybe that's what they've been trying to disguise. I put this out there on Twitter last night before when I was doing my research and putting together my notes. And this was of plays where Justin Fields targeted down the field 10 yards or more. In the Falcons, he was 3 of 4 for 85 yards. Broncos, 2 of 4 for 30. Chargers, 4 of 8 for 121 and a touchdown. That was the first time they let him throw more than 4. Colts, 4 of 7 for 121. And then Cowboys, 2 of 9 for just 27 yards. Did have Connor Hayward's touchdown there. But I look at those and I'm looking like, man, like this needs to be like they tried to open it up just a little bit more, and 4 of those deep passes came in the first quarter. They threw as many deep passes in the first quarter as they did in each of their first 2 games. I think Justin Fields was given the liberty to make plays. But for the whatever reason, it was him or someone else. And again, pressure also played a factor. Isaac Seumalo gave up a sack. He also gave up a pressure that I thought took away a big Calvin Austin play that also was there. For all the different reasons, I look at this and I keep thinking like, man, the Steelers, they're an inch away here and an inch away there from making really big plays and putting things together. But it feels like, how many years have I been saying that now? And how can they get past that point, Alan?
I don't know if they're going to. I think this is an offense, like the offensive line is very much still a work in progress. I did not think they were very good. Isaac Seumalo looked like a guy who probably need a couple more weeks for that pec, and they just rushed him back because it's a crisis. And it has been a crisis. I mean, you had Herbig, you had three guys that are either starters or would have been playing that are out for the season. Like, no offensive line is going to survive that well. I think they've done better than I probably expected them to. I think Najee Harris has to be better. And I think that's mostly, like, if you want to call out a player, like between him and Fields, I think those, and then we'll get to George, but like, I just think this offense has not at any point been overflowing with talent. Now it's banged up. I don't know. I think I understand the lack of faith that the coaching staff shows in the offense. I don't trust it either. I don't think it's going to be very good for a little while.
And it kind of puts the Steelers in a tough situation. How can they get this group to move forward? I want to talk more about where the issues are in our stars and skulls grades, because I think there can be some opening up discussions about where things are and how they play that. But we'll discuss more about that here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with Alan Saunders. Stick with us. Next up is Stars and Skulls. We'll get into that next. But first, we'll remind you this show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the number one sportsbook in America. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel because they are America's number one sportsbook, and they have all the odds, ends, and lines on everything you want, from NFL games to NBA, which is now returning, NHL, which is now returning, Major League Baseball playoffs, and college sports, and so much more. Get on FanDuel today for all the odds, ends, and lines. And this is your look at the Steelers heading into Week 6 against the Raiders. The Steelers open as 3-point road favorites over the Raiders with their money line at -164, Raiders at +138, and the over-under set at 36.5. That is now lower again, under 40 points after they definitely hit the under when they set it at 42.5 last week. So maybe they're going to hit the under again this week with the Raiders and how bad that offense has been. But you can start this season with a big return today on FanDuel. If you're new to FanDuel and you haven't been able to get on yet, guess what? There's a huge opportunity for you, because if you get started with a $5 bet today, you'll get $200 back in bonus bets guaranteed. That's right, $200 of free bets today to new customers when you sign up at FanDuel and just make a $5 bet only on FanDuel.com. Just visit FanDuel.com to download America's number one sportsbook. We're also brought to you by Hillsdale College. Time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through some mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend it wisely to improve yourself? Well, our sponsor, Hillsdale College, is here to help with that. They offer more than 40 free, that's right, free online courses, including Constitution 101, Intro to Free Market Economics, The Great American Story, The Rise and Fall of the Roman Republic, and so many more. All of Hillsdale's courses are self-paced so that you can start whenever, tune in whenever, do what you need whenever fits your schedule. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lectures. Go right now to hillsdale.edu/lockedon to enroll. There's no cost, and it's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedon to register. hillsdale.edu/lockedon. Back here on the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with Alan Saunders of SteelersNow.com. Alan, let's get to our Stars and Skulls grades. As always, we give you our Stars and Skulls grades. Each week, we grade the Steelers as they played. 1 to 3 stars determining good to, are your good plays, and 1 to 3 skulls go from, bad to worse as far as your skulls. There's your rubric on screen if you need it, if you're on YouTube, if you're new to the show. But let's get started here. As always, when we cover a losing effort by the Steelers, we start with the better grades, work our way to the worst. And we'll start with the better grades. I got two 2-star performances here, Alan. Can you guess who they are?
two 2-star performances. Let's see here. See, the thing is that the two guys who I think had the best individual plays were relatively quiet overall. I'll go TJ Watt, and I'll go. Man, I don't know.
I'm about
I guess Nick Herbig getting hurt. I don't know. I'll go with Watt and Herbig.
You're correct. It's Watt and Herbig. Now, I know there's some people saying like, hey, well, like, where was Watt at the end of the game? Watt was out there for 70 plays. And he was a big factor in the Steelers being able to make plays throughout the game. He was getting pressures. He was taking on triple teams. He had a sack and a half in this game. And him and Herbig forced a fumble, recovered a fumble. I think if Herbig's healthy towards the end of this game, it gives them more of a reprieve. Also, DeMarvin Leal even being healthy, just to give them both breathers. I think either of those things could have helped TJ Watt be fresher at the end of the game. If TJ Watt was healthy and they closed it out with a win and he got the pressure that helped close him out, I thought it would have been a 3-star performance. But I give both of these guys 2 stars. I also thought the Cowboys tried to catch Nick Herbig a couple times in certain run schemes that the Colts got them with last week, whether it's jet sweeps or things to his side. And this week he was much sharper at it. That's why I'm giving him 2 stars, because he had the pressures on passing downs, and I thought he was better on run downs.
Yeah, I thought he had a good game, and then he gets hurt, and it's tough. Like I don't know, it didn't look like a good injury. And I think that's a big part of the story down the stretch. TJ was banged up too. He spent some time in the tent.
Yeah.
And they were running Jeremiah Moon and Isaiah Loudermilk at outside linebacker at one point.
That's rough.
Like, no wonder the pass rush wasn't getting home. And everything this defense does is predicated on the pass rush getting home. As soon as you see on that last 4th down play, you see 2 guys on their backsides, it's a touchdown. It didn't like Deshaun Elliott's like, it's on me, it's on me. I'm like, if it wasn't that one, somebody else was coming open eventually, because nobody was getting anywhere near Dak Prescott. Like they had to be able to get home. I thought the absence of those guys really played large in that 4th quarter.
Yeah, I thought the again, injuries, I think kind of limit yourself there as far as what they're able to do. We do have 1-star grades in this game, and quite a few, because I did think there were certain guys that made plays here and there, but not overly demonstrative of positive plays here. Cam Hayward, I gave a star. I thought that when he was on the field, he was pretty solid for the Steelers and helpful, but I thought he was also the only defensive lineman who I felt that way about. I gave Isaiah Loudermilk a star for his blocking a field goal. But Landon Roberts, the punch out at the line of scrimmage, I thought was huge. I thought he was solid when he was on the field. I gave Najee Harris a star because I thought he was their leading receiver, which isn't really that much of a part of clear in this game, but he made plays in the passing game. And I thought that there wasn't much to be made in the run game. And when they gave them the ball in the air, and I think they should have given the ball to him more in the air. He was making plays. Chris Boswell, because he's Chris Boswell. Joey Porter Jr. with the interceptions. Pat Freiermuth made some key catches and a touchdown. Dante Jackson with his interception. I really struggled with him because I thought there were some definite mistakes he made in coverage. Dan Moore didn't give up a pressure, as did not Zach Frazier, so both of them get it. And I give Kyle Allen a star because he comes in and reprieve and throws a 19-yard dart over the middle to Pat Freiermuth in relief in the really the 1 or 2 plays that he got in the game. So kudos to him on that. But I also gave Justin Fields a star here. And Allen, I think there's some people that feel kind of like all over the place. There are people that think Justin Fields did great in this game. There's people that feel that Justin Fields is okay in this game. There are people that feel like he was terrible. I don't think he was terrible. I do think he missed a lot of opportunities. There were times when I was looking at the film, I'm like, this feels like a neutral grade to me. I gave him a star though, because hey, he did throw 2 touchdowns and he was able to make some things happen in what was kind of a jumbled mess of an offensive performance from this unit.
Yeah, I think like the thing about Fields is like a lot of the things that went wrong weren't necessarily his fault, but he also like didn't really put the team in the best position all the time either. I thought some of his decision making was very like the play he gets hit and the personal foul on, like, what are you doing? Like, you run one way and then right back at the pass rush. Like, I mean, like that kind of stuff is like head scratching. Gets bailed out there. I thought he had a nice drive the rest of that drive. But it just wasn't very consistent. Had a couple passes like the ball to Van Jefferson in double coverage, like that can't go there. I feel like the one that Pickens ended up dropping, I thought he kind of forced it to him. He had Freiermuth open underneath on a little bit easier play. So I think the thing about Fields is what he did was generally okay enough. I just think the decision-making part kind of held him back from being able to do more. And then he had the receivers had a bunch of drops.
And that's where I can't put all of it on Fields. But again, I think consistency continues to be a problem for this offense, and he's part of those issues there. Again, though, but again, real quick here, your thoughts on Porter and Dante Jackson through 5 games. I've been harsh on Porter. I thought he had his worst game against the Colts. I thought he bounced back pretty well in this game. They didn't go after him a ton, and the time they really took the big shot against him, he made him pay with an interception.
Yeah, I thought Porter's tackling wasn't great, but I thought he covered better. And then he had a really nice play on the pick, really good read. That wasn't really where he necessarily was like supposed to be. I think he just read the ball in the air and was like, oh, I can get that. You like to see that. Same thing with Djax. I thought that, I talked to Joey after the game, and they're going to give up yards. You're going to give up yards in the NFL, and they feel like they can get teams to turn the ball over. And I think some of what they're doing on defense with the miscommunications is they're trying to do a little bit too much. I think sometimes in terms of disguises and moving guys around late and trying to get people from one pre-snap look to a different coverage. But it's kind of hard to argue with the results, right? They got 3 turnovers in this game. They only give up 20 points. They're at 14 points per game on the season. I just think in general, I have some quibbles with the defense, but I don't have a lot of big problems. I don't have a lot of big issues.
So I was going to ask you that in the next segment. I'll ask it to you now because you kind of bring it up there. Minka Fitzpatrick says that he thinks the defense should get simpler and maybe do away with some of those things that you're talking about. I hear it, hey, Minka Fitzpatrick, I get it because they are having some busted coverages there, and when they've done it really well in past years when they've been able to kind of disguise everything and make things look pretty clean there. It's fooled people. They've been able to pull it off, but like he said, we got young guys, we got new guys, and those are some issues that the Steelers didn't have in some past years because they were made up of more veteran guys who knew the system. Cam Sutton had been in it for 6 years and was one of your cornerbacks, and you had Terrell Edmonds and Minka Fitzpatrick, and you had Joe Hayden and guys like that they didn't have to ask where anyone was at. They just knew, hey, we could trust each other to be in the right spots there. So I ask you, do you think Minka's right that they should simplify things down a little bit, or do you think they should keep trying to be this disguising, complicated defense that tries to trick you into turnovers?
I think they have to find a happy medium when it comes to young players like Beanie Bishop and Peyton Wilson. I think they have to recognize who's on the field and who's capable of doing what and who's not. You can't call the same defense for Dante Jackson, Joey Porter, Deshaun Elliott, DeMonte Casey, and Minka Fitzpatrick as you can if you're involving some of those young guys or even some of the newer guys who maybe just aren't as used to it. I mean, you get out there in the dime package and you got one side of the field and it's Minka, Dante Jackson, and Terrell Edmonds. I let those guys do whatever the heck they want. Disguise it however you want. I have full faith in their ability to do it. But I do think some of that is causing some of these miscommunications. We saw several of them. Beanie had a really tough day. I mean, I think – it wasn't all bad. There was plenty of good with the bad for Beanie, but there was just too much bad. And I just think they're making it too easy for teams to pick on the guys that aren't quite up to that level until they get up to speed or until they get Cam Sutton back, one or the other, I guess. We got to figure a way to find a happy medium there.
I agree. We'll get to the skulls grades in a minute here because there's quite a few of them and some of the bigger skulls. No bus tickets this week, but some really bad skull grades. We'll get to that next here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter, Alan Saunders, stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I want to remind you this show is also brought to you by Game Time. It's fall. That means there's plenty to do in Pittsburgh. There's no better place to find tickets to all your favorite live events than Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes it easier to get tickets for all your favorite live events. All you have to do is go to Game Time Picks, where it filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so that you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Right now, actually, if you're listening to this tonight, one of the greatest musical legends of all time, Stevie Wonder, is coming to Pittsburgh tonight at PPG Paints Arena. You better go. He's fantastic. He's one of my favorite artists of all time. You can get tickets on Game Time and get great prices as well. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets to all your sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. They also give you the Game Time guarantee so that you always get the best price, because if you find tickets in the same section of row for less somewhere else, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference of those prices. Snag the tickets without the stress with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase, or go to their website, gametime.co. Terms and conditions apply. Create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's Game Time. Back here in the Locked On Steelers podcast, I'm your host, Chris Carter, here with Alan Saunders of SteelersNow.com. Gave you one there because I messed you up the intro. I apologize again. All right, let's get to our skull grades here. We'll start with the one skulls and work our way up, because we do have, for the first time this year, all three levels of skulls are active. So let's start with the one skulls. Not an overwhelming amount, but a decent group here. I gave Deshaun Elliott a skull. Broderick Jones a skull, Larry Ogunjobi a skull, Montrevious Adams a skull, Patrick Queen a skull, Van Jefferson and Mason McCormick. More are coming later, so do not fret if you didn't see a player that you thought was deserving among this mix here. I held back on Deshaun Elliott. I know that he put both touchdowns on him. The first touchdown, I mean, he did get beat. I mean, he kind of bumped into the guy, knocked down, and he slipped and lost his footing. I don't put the second touchdown on him. I think that he was coming late to help for Beanie Bishop, who didn't take on the man that was supposed to be passed off to him.
That was his guy. Beanie had the guy coming out of the backfield, but he was
running with the crossing route and passed it off to Minkah Fitzpatrick, and it looked like the guy who Minkah Fitzpatrick was passing off to him, if he runs with him or at least cuts him off. It was
they weren't passing, it was man. They were just trying to get to their men, and that's why they were trying to swim through the muck. It was a good call against man, and like I said, there was so little pressure. I don't put it on Elliott because, just first of all, that's a bad man matchup for him. Jalen Tolbert against a strong safety, it's not great. And second of all, somebody was going to get open eventually because there was no pressure on Dak. So
I just had a
first
problem.
One he tripped, yeah, it's going to happen.
I just wasn't sure about if it was supposed to be Deshaun Elliott there, because when you see Beanie Bishop, he kind of when he looks at the receiver that's crossing, he kind of looks at him, looks in the backfield, then looks back at him he had a moment where he was like, I was supposed to do something there. And then Deshaun Elliott's flying from the other side of the field to get to him. I felt like, if anything, he needed to help impede him there, because that's asset. For example, Minkah Fitzpatrick's coming from the other side of the field to cover one crosser. I think it's only natural for the Steelers in that situation to be saying, hey, in this situation, we are passing off guys here, because that's what you're trying to do there. They did it on one. Minkah did it properly on one side. I think there was someone supposed to be on the right side that did it for the other guy. And I thought that the one player who wasn't running with anybody at the end of the play was Beanie Bishop. That's why I put that on him. I didn't put too much on it. I also thought he made several other plays in this game that kind of kept him in float, but that's why I only gave him one skull in this one here. I want to get your thoughts, though, on the D-line, because there's also one more D-lineman I'm going to have on later skulls grades, but I gave Ogunjobi and Adams. I gave Ogunjobi a break because he got hurt in this game, but I felt like Patrick Queen, and I could have put Peyton Wilson in here. I couldn't find a whole lot of plays where I felt like he was getting destroyed, and maybe I need to just look a little bit harder. I've only had
he had the one really nice TFL too, where he kind of knifed through. So
I feel like he was neutral.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I didn't think the D-line was very good in this game, and I was really. I don't have a lot of expectations for talking to players in the locker room after a loss. Guys are frustrated. I get it. Yeah. They're not trying to. But I was a little surprised that nobody could come up with an answer for me as to how the heck the Cowboys ran the ball so well after being completely unable to in their first 4 games. I mean, they were dead last in the league in rushing.
Mm-hmm.
Sure didn't look like a team that was dead last in the league in rushing against the Steelers, and nobody really had an answer for me. And I thought that was a little interesting. So yeah, I'm okay with those guys. I think I had Connor Hayward in here, probably myself. I don't know.
So I went back and forth with Connor because he had 2 drops, but I was like, he caught a touchdown.
Touchdown. Yeah,
So I was
see
kind of
it.
like,
I see it. I kind of think I would have put him here, especially the second drop. That one
second
really.
drop
I mean,
was
the first one would have been a tough catch. I understand he said like, "Yeah, that's on me. I gotta get it." But like that was a diving. It would have been a very nice catch if he made it. The second one's routine. It's got to happen. I think I would have been okay with him being here.
Yeah. I gave Van Jefferson one for his deep drop. I think that he, for all the things that he was showing in camp that maybe he could be sharp at, we haven't seen a lot of that come to fruition. I've also put Broderick Jones in here and Mason McCormick. I thought that they could have been better on the O-line. Broderick Jones giving up 2 pressures, one of which I thought spoiled the screen pass we're talking about. I thought Broderick Jones, if he holds this guy for one more half of a second, Fields can set his feet and throw a better ball to Connor Hayward on that deep ball on the Najee Harris screen that left Connor Hayward wide open and led to him leaping out a little bit here. So that's there. I want your thoughts though on Patrick Queen, because I didn't feel like Patrick Queen, I don't feel is completely out of place and is a big part of all the blown coverages. But he's also not making plays at the middle linebacker position or the inside linebacker position, and I do feel like he needs to be better in there. Like I feel like part of them running the ball is he needs to be helping a bit more in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think his tackling has been great. I don't think he's out of position.
Right.
But I just think you're seeing the guy who's like a step slower than he ought to be. Whether it's like instincts or reaction or whatever. And I also, I think I said this last week. I'm willing to give the guy calling the defense a little bit of the ownership of the miscommunications, which continue to be a problem. And so, I don't think it's all him by any stretch. The guys screwing things up have to own it too. But I'm okay with being a little tough on P Queen there. But I've not lost any faith in the man's abilities. I think he will.
Oh yeah, I
think we're going to look back on this slow start at the end of the year as an aberration, and I'm not concerned at all about him going forward.
No, I'm with you on that. I don't think this is like is Patrick Queen like actually a really bad signing? I think that he's had some rough games. I also thought I think against the Chargers, I graded him very well. I thought he had a good game there, but I agree with you. I don't think it's that dire just yet. I got two scholars here. I got Keanu Benton and Isaac Seumalo. I thought Keanu Benton was part of the problem on the D-line, getting moved way too much. I thought Cam Hayward was kind of alone at times on the D-line and what he was trying to do in holding down the key spots. I thought he was rough. I also put Isaac Seumalo with 2 skulls in this game, particularly because I thought that the sack that he gave up was just inexcusable, and maybe it is that Peck. Maybe he's still injured, and they're kind of having him out there because they feel like they need to without James Daniels. But between that and then there was another pressure that if he just holds his man for just again another half second longer, Calvin Austin breaks open in the middle part of the field for a huge gain. And I thought there were a few times where he needed to be significantly better than he was. If he's injured, maybe they do need to rest him a little bit more. But I thought both of these guys had pretty rough days.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with giving Seumalo that grade, but I think like Spencer Anderson was not doing well when he was in there either. So I kind of understand the thought process behind like, hey, he's good enough, get him in there. We'll see. I hope this doesn't turn into like a Cam Hayward thing where he's playing poorly for weeks and weeks, though. Like I didn't think Anderson was that bad that they like had to rush him. So I don't know. We'll see. I agree with Benton. I thought the whole defensive line, like I said, struggled, and I think I know where we're headed next.
We are headed to 3 skull territory again. No bus ticket grades for this one, but your boy thought about it. I'm pretty sure you can guess who I have. I have 2 3 scholars. Who are their names?
2 3-scholar surprises me, actually. I think I would have just given one to George Pickens. If I got to pick another 3-scholar, I don't know. I'm actually kind of blanking on who that might be.
We've said his name already.
I did?
We both have.
Okay. I don't know. Who else you got in there?
I put Beanie Bishop on that list. I'm
Okay.
sorry, but he was getting
that's good
and looking lost.
That's a good call. Yeah, that's a good call. I kind of forgot about him. Yeah.
We'll get to George Pickens in a second. This is not to say Beanie Bishop is terrible but I think when Minkah Fitzpatrick was talking about new guys and young faces that weren't sure where they were supposed to be because they're doing these complex things, I think that was a big circle around Beanie Bishop because they're trying to disguise things. As you pointed out last week, he was the reason why Ogletree got the touchdown for the Colts, their second passing touchdown, and then this week I just thought there were several big plays that you see him kind of spinning his head around like, where was I supposed to be? Where was that? I thought Beanie Bishop needed to be better there. And again, he can get better. He's a rookie, but I think it's more evident. It's evident more and more that like if they're going to play that style of ball where they're doing those complex coverages, they need Cam Sutton back, or they need to have a veteran in the slot who can rotate around and do all the things they're asking of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair. I did think he had a couple of nice plays in this game. Like he made a really nice tackle on maybe an end around or some kind of jet sweep or something. He came up. He had a pass break up on the third down right before, allowed him to block the field goal. That was a really nice play. So like I see the thought process of wanting to get him out there because I think he's a good player. Like I've thought he was a good player.
I think he has a lot of potential
since the first day. It's just I think that like to me, I almost like put him and his mistakes. Like yeah, undrafted rookies are going to screw up. Like there's a reason that he came here the way he came. I think they've got to do a better job of a defense of protecting him and sort of sheltering his role a little bit more instead of just letting him. I mean, there was one play where he's lined up over CD Lamb, and I'm just like, it's not going to go well. Like like what? And that was a third down, the long completion over the outside, and like they double covered him, but like I'm just like they can find a way to use Beanie Bishop as a promising young corner and not get him exposed the way he's been exposed.
I feel you there, but let's talk about the other 3-scholar here because to me this is the more egregious thing, and it's George Pickens. And I know there's some people out there that think that George Pickens can do no wrong, but man, I looked back and initially I was just like, man, like I felt like he really mailed in some things. I underestimated how much he mailed in this game. I mean, it's one thing to to not really run hard on a route when it's a quick pass to the other side of the field. And it's just like, hey, I know I'm not going to make a play here. Like, I know I'm going to preserve myself here a little bit and not go 1,000% so I can be fresher on the next play. That happens. And I'm not, crazy. I'm not going crazy about that. What I am going to go crazy about is when you're part of a route concept and you're the primary part of it and you're the number one guy they're trying to get open and you're running your route slow. And I mean, we know how fast George Pickens can be. We know when he takes off, he is really tough to catch. There were several plays where I thought he just, did not give a full effort. I will say instead of a half cuss word, that I would throw in there. But there was a deep crossing pattern where it was perfectly designed. And he has all the cushion from Diggs, and all he has to do is just run that route hard. He breaks to the right part of the field. Fields can float it to him. He catches it. He probably runs for 20, 30 yards, and it's a huge play for the Steelers. Instead, he slow runs it. Diggs catches up to him, and Fields has to throw it away because he's like, if I throw this ball, Diggs is jumping it now because now they're on it. And I saw several plays like that where he was at fault for doing this, and that kind of lack of effort is inexcusable in my opinion.
I thought the whole game was inexcusable for George Pickens from the message on the on the tape on his face. He was not always open. Let me tell you what, he was almost never open because he wasn't running hard. I mean, I just don't like. This is a guy that is he's pretend tough. He wants to talk like he's the dude, and then he doesn't want to back it up. He doesn't want to do the work and put in the effort to be always open. I think the coaching staff is at its wit's end with him. I think the rest of the locker room is at its wit's end with him. I think if you listen to Pat Freiermuth's comments after the game,
Yep.
it does not take a lot of imagination to try to figure out which direction those were pointed at. The body language, the throwing his helmet on the series where he gets himself benched, and like, with full respect to Mike Tomlin, let's call it what it was. He got himself benched. I don't give a rat's behind about load management or whatever crap.
I said that yesterday. That is
on Sunday.
Of all the Tomlinisms to cover up things, that was like one of the least sneakiest ones of all time.
Like, what are we doing here? If you want to be mad at the coaching, be mad about that, even though it's not a coaching thing. But the series in the second half where he's benched, and by the way, they drive down the field and score a touchdown. He is laying on. I don't know if I can do it. He is laying on the bench like this. His feet are out. His arms are back like this. He's staring up at the sky. People won't. People are like avoiding him on the sideline. Mike Tomlin I have so much admiration for his self-control, because I think I'd have cut him with like 13 minutes left in the third quarter of that game. I don't know how you move forward with George Pickens as a big part of this offense. I don't know how you can trust him to do his job. He clearly was not interested in doing it on Sunday night. And the general manager has put them in the position where he's their only playable wide receiver, basically. And so they basically have to find a way to make it work. I don't know how. I think this is the game itself may not be bus ticket worthy, but I'll say this: George Pickens is playing himself out of the Steelers' future plans as we speak.
I mean, it's very reminiscent for me to Chase Claypool and his lack of effort.
That's way worse. Claypool never did that.
But see, here's the thing. Here's the thing about this: Chase Claypool wasn't this good.
Yeah,
like this is what makes it worse, is that George Pickens could be a top 5 receiver if he really wanted to be. And what's crazy is, you remember the start of training camp, first day, he gets into it with Zach Azzani. We're all talking about it. We're like, whoa, it's a big thing. And after that, he locks in. And I gave him credit for the first 2-3 games when he wasn't getting all the targets. I didn't see him moping. I didn't see him carrying it around with him and being like, oh, this stinks. And for him to do it now, so I was like, maybe he's grown up. Maybe he's gotten it. And for him to do this now and in such a public way is a sign to me that no, he hasn't. Despite all the Steelers' efforts, the Steelers coaches have called him out. The Steelers players have called him out. And they've been saying, we need better from this guy. You've benched him now. Like, that's the other thing. People are like, oh, why were his snaps low? That's the dumbest strategy ever. Last year, I remember y'all was saying, people saying, oh, you gotta bench him. You gotta teach him a lesson. Okay, they're doing that now, and now you're still mad. And maybe at some point it's on him because he needs to grow up.
3.7 yards per target on 7 targets, by the way. He's had 7 targets in 3 of 5 games at 11 and 1 and 4 in the other. So he got his targets, even though he wasn't in the game. Mike was not lying about that. They used him just as much as they had used him, but he didn't do anything with them. Yes. I would be very surprised if he gets 7 targets next week. If I'm Arthur Smith, how can you look at the rest of the guys on that offense and be like, no, we're still going to try to design everything around George?
Yeah.
I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you keep the locker room if you're going to continue to cater this guy who clearly does not give a crap about the team. I just don't.
I'm right with you. I think that there's a message needs to be sent, a message needs to be received, and there needs to be some sort of acknowledgement with the team. Otherwise, this rift is going to get worse and worse. One thing I even saw when I was looking back at the game, there were times I think Justin Fields even kind of avoided him, and they're supposed to be boys from high school days, from when they used to do like 7-on-7s and stuff. And so with that, I think that there needs to be something that gets to him. And for Mike Tomlin, from what I understand, has had his words with George Pickens. That was what that. And listen, last year after the Colts game, when he didn't block for Jaylen Warren on that play, and we were all talking about it, and he was very mopey with the media after that. After that, he straightened up his tune, and I think that Mike Tomlin had a big part to do with that. But now you have this situation. How many times are you going to baby this guy? And I think it goes back to Mike Tomlin's philosophy. I want volunteers, not hostages. And if he keeps having a baby you, eventually he's going to be like, you know what? you're not the adult that you need to be, and we need to move on with people. That's why they got rid of Deontay Johnson, in my opinion, was that they wanted to clear out guys like this, and I think that this could have been a message to George Pickens. He clearly didn't receive it. And it's causing more problems. And here's the thing is that when you take away that playmaker from this offense, then you're even in worse of a situation to try to break open things. You're going to need to try to hit all these popcorn problems we're talking about. They get even louder because you don't have a super playmaker out there who can erase them by just making insane plays.
Yeah. But I also think, like, look, the Johnson trade made the team worse. There's no question about that. But I think sometimes you have to make those decisions. I think you have to prioritize your culture at some point. And I think the situation with George Pickens is rapidly becoming very toxic. I think it has always had the potential to be toxic. I think they had a hope that he could grow up, and he's not. And I just don't think you can win with guys like that. I think they got to find a way to get rid of him, whether it's now or in the offseason. I don't know. I mean, Rossini reported that he's a guy that could be moved at the trade deadline. I have a hard time seeing it, but I would not be surprised at all if George Pickens doesn't finish his rookie contract in Pittsburgh at this point.
It certainly has not looking good when you see efforts like that. We'll keep you apprised of things. I'm sure Mike Tomlin will address some of that on his Tuesday press conference later today. So stay tuned for that. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Alan, thanks so much for joining us this year, as always, on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let people can find you, follow you, and get more of your work.
Saunders_PGH on X, Instagram, and TikTok. PGH Steelers Now site's account, SteelersNow.com. You can read all my written work. Use promo code Allen10 for 10% off an annual subscription. It costs just $4 a month and really helps out us. And appreciate you supporting local journalism. You can find my podcast, Steelers Afternoon Drive and Steelers Morning Rush, on the Steelers Now YouTube page or anywhere you find podcasts.
Beat Alan Saunders, get all of that great content. He does a great job over there at SteelersNow.com. Thank you, Alan, for joining us. And thank you all for joining us here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Carter Critiques. Read my work at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, post-gazette.com. Find me here every day, Monday through Friday, here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. Back tomorrow with more on your Pittsburgh Steelers right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.